Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 6, Episode 4 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on April 17th, 2022. 2022? No, that's the wrong year. 2023. I put the wrong year in here. But it is not the past. It is the present, and it is coming out on April 4th, April 17th. 2023. Just to get that out there. I've said the thing. All right. And so we're going to talk a lot about games today. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is the Gizmo Track 2 Limited Edition Rarities Blackberry Honey Wheat 6.7% beer that I picked up from one of the local shops. It says Rarities Blackberry Honey Wheat Ale. Most artist catalogs contain some rarities, the one-offs that may have been the ones that made for fun versus commercial success. The live versions, we are no exception. This beer was a happy accident. The unintended product of a perfectly timed error. Tons of blackberry puree was unintentionally added to the delicious honey wheat ale, while While admittedly not the artist's intent, it is still indeed an art and therefore deserves to be shared and devoured. And if I didn't say it before, it's a 6.7% brew. So what do you think, Ricky?
It's not bad, but it definitely does taste like an accident. And what I mean by that is the flavor balance is not that great. So it's still tasty, but it's got a lot of that kind of like a little bit of bitterness and like the acidity you expect from something like a honey wheat ale. But then there is a little bit of fruitiness, but it doesn't line up well with the rest of the flavors. You see what I mean?
Yeah, the blackberry flavor is very muted.
Yeah.
And not as forward as you would expect for something that's, focusing on blackberry. It's the honey wheat ale is a very well made. It's their standard honey wheat. It's a very good one.
I mean, the whole thing is well made in terms of craft. Like, there's no off flavors or anything like that.
Yeah.
If this was like part of their standard lineup, I'd critique a little bit their like flavor balance. But knowing it's an accident, and this is like here's a chance for us to sell and get rid of this kind of probably what was a 50 or 100 gallon batch of this mistake. No, I can see it. It's certainly not bad. Just, if they wanted to bring it to the full lineup, I think they just need some more blackberry.
Yeah, definitely. It needs more of that punch, that sweetness, and that kind of richness that blackberries bring without being too overly, aggressive.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing that pulls me away from it is like I'm having kind of like a wheat ale right now, but then at the end there is a little bit of sweetness and fruitiness. But if you hadn't told me that was blackberry, I would never be able to determine it. It's like there is some sweet-ish fruit in here somewhere, but you can't really pull it out.
No, you can't. It's a little bit more difficult to pull it out. It's still something, if it's in your area and you can get it, which this is a North Carolina brewing company. They sell other stuff locally. They do, send them around, I think, to some other places in the U.S. But if you can get it, totally worth having. It's just not the best Gizmo beer that I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, if you like wheat ales, you'll probably like this. If you like fruit beers, you probably won't. The only thing I'd say on that is, if you're looking for something new to try, because I think you bought it just an individual can.
No, I bought a 4-pack. It was only like $12.
Oh yeah, that's not bad for a 4-pack.
It was either 12 or 16, but it wasn't very expensive.
Okay, so. Yeah. So I mean, they're even selling it probably at a little bit of a discount compared to the normal ales.
I think that might have been more controlled by the retailer that was selling it.
Okay, it could be. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth checking out if that's something that you wanted to try out and do. Yeah. So let's talk about these Game Boy, Pocket Boy kind of systems. The retro handheld emulator things that we've got going on. So I've got a modded Game Boy Advance. I've got a regular Game Boy Advance. I've got a Miyoo Mini. I've got an Anbernic RG35XX. I didn't include this in the show notes, but we also looked at the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. We're going to do a more in-depth talk on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. You know, we looked at all the same ROM, which was Golden Sun, on these devices, and the kind of experience that you get with them. What do you think about them? Is it worth, you know, spending? I think it cost me $150 for this. This was $100. This was roughly like $160, I think.
Do you want to see the names of them?
Well, I'm just telling you,
Okay.
and then I should probably tell everyone. You are correct. The Game Boy Advance was about, the modded version of it was about $150 for me to get and put the battery pack in that I bought. So it's got a USB-C charging battery pack in it. Then I also had the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, which was about $99, and I think with shipping it was like $120. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus was I think about $150. The Anbernic RG35XX was I think $75. If I remember correctly, that was shipping and everything. And then the Miyu Mini, which you can't get anymore, but there's a Miyu Mini Plus that's come out. It's only a little bit more expensive than this one. It was $65 when I bought it, and then there was the like $10 shipping, I think.
Okay.
So it's roughly comparable to the RG35XX in terms of like cost. So first, before I even start going into, you know, what I like, all that other stuff about them, like what kind of the pros and cons of like purchasing these things are, just looking at the Golden Sun ROM, you already had said some things that you like the most about these devices. So why don't you tell me which one you like the most and which one you kind of, or what the reason is why you like them.
Yeah. So I liked the Retroid 3 Plus the most, just in terms of it has the kind of like really good hand feel. It's a little bit larger screen, which I know makes it a little bit less portable, but it's a handheld. It's pretty portable already, no matter what your form factor. I was going to originally critique that I didn't like both the sticks are at the bottom, because I kind of like one stick at the top, but then I found most of the games don't use the stick anyway, so you need the D-pad. So I really liked that the D-pad was where that kind of like elevated left-hand stick would be. So yeah, played really well. Audio quality was really nice. You know, visuals and large screen, real good. After that, it's probably a tie between the Miyu Mini and the Retroid 2, because what I don't like about the Retroid 2 now is that the stick is in that top left-hand corner, which I can't use. I was looking at the Retroid 2 while playing the Retroid 3, like, I'm going to like that better because I'm going to want that stick right there. And it's like, oh, okay, the stick doesn't work. Well, never mind. I'm going to switch to, now this feels weird that both of them are there at the bottom. But I got to give the Miyu Mini some props, because that's probably my third favorite, because it's got such a good resolution and good performance on that small screen size, and it's the smallest out of all of them.
Yeah, it's really pocketable.
Yeah, so if that is what I was going for, is like I want something I can just toss in my pocket and it's there everywhere with me, that might be the one I would be really inclined to go towards, especially if I was playing like older games. Because, you know, I think, you know, most of the games I like to emulate are like PS1 games, because that's closer to like my era when I first like picked up gaming. Because really all I had on my like handhelds as a kid was like Pokemon. That was about it. So I don't have any memories of like cartridge games, really.
So all of these, except for the Game Boy Advance, will play PS1 games.
Yeah, they will. I just don't know how I will feel about some of those games on that small a screen.
Well, when we do the more in-depth, talk about
the
Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, we can sit down and actually like look at those games and see if any of those, because I had them on there, you know, so you could look at them, but we were kind of comparing it to the Game Boy Advance. So.
Yeah, because we had that modded.
Right.
Which, that one's actually good. That's a pretty good improvement from just like a standard Game Boy Advance to the modded one.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I gotta say the original Game Boy Advance was my least favorite, but that's probably to be expected of a console that's like 20 years old now, or maybe more.
It came out in the early 2000s, so it's a little bit over
20 years-ish. Yeah, I mean, you don't think about how much a more modern screen matters in terms of like light exposure and what angle you can be holding it at and still see very well and stuff like that. So a new screen on that made a huge difference.
Well, I've got another GPI case that runs a Raspberry Pi W2, and it looks like the original DMG. So it's kind of the same size as the Game Boy, big Game Boy, those black and white. I didn't pull it out to look at it here because that's kind of even though it'll do all the same things that it runs a completely different operating system. It kind of functions slightly different. It's more like a Tinker kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just left that one out. But we may talk about that one at some point in time coming up this season. However, the reason that I brought all these out is one of the things that I love to do is play Game Boy Advance games, because I do have a lot of nostalgia around like Game Boy Advance. I didn't love the Game Boy Advance SP because I don't like that form factor where my hands
the little together. Square, right?
Yeah, so the Miyoo Mini Plus, the only detractor for it is it's a little small in my hands. But,
and I can give you that. That balances out a bit for me because then it suddenly becomes just so portable. I mean, like my wallet's bigger than that thing is.
Yes.
But you're right. It is if I was sitting at home, that would not be my choice. Because you're right, it is so small.
Right. Now, I carry it with me everywhere. It's always in my pocket. So it is super pocketable. Even the case for it only adds a tiny bit of bulk to it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not very big. And I'm talking about the, like if I'm going to throw it in a backpack or something, I'll put it in a zip-up hard shell case. And that's the smallest out of all these cases. So anyways, the thing about the Miyoo Mini and other things like it is, and I think I turned it off. I did. That was dumb of me. But Miyoo Mini has one feature that none of these other ones do. So if you're playing a video game on it, you can tap the power button and it'll just put it to sleep. It'll save your state in the video game.
Okay.
And then you're just sitting there doing something. Oh, wow, that was loud.
I got the volume still turned to max on this audio quality.
You just tap the power button, see it just turned off, and then it turns right back on in the same exact spot. So it goes into a rest mode, it sips power. It is really awesome for that particular thing. So it is specifically designed to be a portable, in your pocket all the time kind of replacement for something like your Android device that can emulate games or has some of those games on it, but you don't have physical buttons or anything like that. No start select, and then it has features on top of it that are built into RetroArch that make it just useful. Now there's a new version of this one called the Miyoo Mini Plus, and that device is set up so that you can get on the Wi-Fi. So none of these two, the RG35XX and the Miyoo Mini, don't have any Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything like that built into them. But you can get on Wi-Fi with the Miyoo Mini Plus, and therefore you're able to do things like NetPlay. You would be able to get over-the-air updates instead of having to put that stuff on your SD card, or you can do some other things like that to make it fairly easy to actually update the operating system, get retro achievements, things like that, where you aren't able to do that on the RG35XX or the original Miyoo Mini or the Game Boy Advance, but you can do it on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus and the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. All right, so we were talking about before we got interrupted for a second, but we were talking about kind of just the features of all the things. And now that I've told you about the pocketability features and the auto shut off, or not auto shut off, the auto save mechanism on the Miyoo Mini Plus and the Miyoo Mini, and I believe that the RG35XX, as long as Garlic OS gets developed, will start to have some of those features.
Okay.
The stock operating systems on both of those devices doesn't do that. So the Retroids don't have anything like that really, except they have save on close but not save on power off. So does that change your opinion about any of those, or
Not really, but it's mostly just because of my lifestyle. So I very rarely have a need to carry, like, I'm just going to have entertainment in my pocket for when I find myself in a situation where I'm bored.
Yeah.
Because I'm either, like 99% of the time, I'm either at home or I'm out doing something in like a place that I have to be paying attention, like I'm running chores or like something like that.
Right.
So most of when I'm thinking about portable stuff is for travel. So like I'm going to be on a plane, or I'm going to be in the hotel after we've done whatever we're doing at the place we've gone to. And that still brings me towards the retro. But I will admit, I think maybe that feature on the Miyoo Mini maybe bumps up to second.
Okay.
It's again a thing that I don't feel like I would have the like, oh, I'm waiting in line somewhere, I'm sitting on a bus, or I'm doing whatever, I've got 15 minutes, let's play a quick game of something, a quick round of, Final Fantasy Tactics or something like that. Whereas, that 6-hour plane ride, I'd rather have the retro. But yeah, the Miyoo is nice. I like it. I gotta say, yeah, I was very impressed with it. It doesn't fit my use case. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think they're both really great. Also, I guess I gotta also talk about the price. Like the Miyoo Mini is like half the price.
Yeah.
As the Retroid, which granted it is less than half the size. So obviously there's less stuff going into it. And we'll see, I guess, when we do the testing if it has less performance. But I mean, overall, if I was somebody that needed a lot of mobile gaming, I would almost be tempted to get both. I think one for like it's in my car, in the car, in my pocket, and then the other for like this is when I want to go play retro games at home, because the Retroid 3 has a form factor that's like kind of like a PSP.
Yeah.
So like you could absolutely just play that at home too, and just like this is where I want to do some emulation. I'm just sitting on the couch and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the big thing for me and in my particular use case is I have these so that I can sit on the couch and do like couch gaming and stuff like that. I don't really love streaming because you can stream on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus and the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. You can stream to them. I prefer the form factor of the 2 Plus. When the Retroid Pocket 3 came out, it had the same chip as the 2 Plus in it, and I didn't see a real purpose in upgrading. The form factor was not as much. I like the Game Boy Advance style handheld form factor. So that for a while is the thing that I was doing. The screen size fits more of those 4x3 games that I tend to play. So like PS1 games, even like GameCube or something like that, fits, in that kind of category. The performance bump is a huge amount between the 3 Plus and the 2 Plus. It's the most performant of all of these systems, but the Steam Deck still blows them away.
Yeah.
So the Steam Deck is my normal couch gaming device, and then before I had my Steam Deck, it was the 2 Plus, and that's the one that I'd carry around with me everywhere. The only reason that I kind of still keep the 3 Plus around, and I haven't sold it, or we're even talking about it aside from being podcast fodder, is it on certain Android games, it works better, and I have a built-in joystick on it.
Gotcha.
So that's why I keep it around. I prefer the Miyoo Mini for being able to go out and do stuff. So like if we're going on a grocery trip or something like that, I don't generally drive because that makes my wife gets car sick, so I'll pull that out and I'll play like a little bit of some role-playing game or something like that, and then I'll pop it back in my pocket. But that feature of being able just to turn it off is killer for me.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if you like to play anything that's like Game Boy Advance or older, anything that's slower paced games, or you like something like that, the Miyoo Mini is like the perfect little carry around device. The Retroid is Retroid Pocket 2 Plus is kind of your Game Boy Advance, style and almost proper aspect ratio for that. And then if you're playing PSP games or anything like that, where you want that to be like your kind of thing, the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus does that just really great. So it just kind of depends on what games you're playing.
Yeah, that's true.
Which one like kind of works out and what you want to do. And someone would say, but I've got an Android phone. why don't I just play these games on it? It's the physical buttons.
Yeah. Yeah. And having tried to get back into like mobile games with no buttons, it's hard.
It is really hard.
Especially for these games that were designed to have buttons.
Yeah, exactly. I played Final Fantasy IX for about 4 hours last night, going through kind of the introduction, getting where you meet Vivi and Garnet and all that stuff. And it was a pleasure to play on this. I tried to play it on the Miu Mini, and it was fun to play on that, but it was a little bit more cramped. I played it on the Anbernic. It was nice to play on that. I played it on the Retroid Pocket 3. It was nice to play on that. I tried playing it on my phone. If I had to do it in a pinch, that would be fine, but it's just not as good of a experience, just overall. The one thing that's a detractor to the Retroids is not every game that supports controllers picks up the controllers from the Retroids. So sometimes you have to map them, which is kind of crap, but I mean,
that is what it is.
You can't really do anything about that. But, okay, so all these things are kind of superior to the Game Boy Advance. I could make an argument why a Game Boy Advance would be a great, little device to have in your arsenal of things. Can you make one?
I think so. I mean, if you've already got a large collection of Game Boy Advance games, those are all cartridge bases. You've got saves. You've got all sorts of stuff you've done on them. Getting that modded Game Boy gives you that nice step up from just the base console. Like the much better screen. You can view it at a lot better angles. It's not as light sensitive. So like when I was walking around with the regular Game Boy, I was like, oh, I got to be careful. Like as I'm walking around this room playing, where I am to the light source, because it's making it kind of go in and out of what I can see and can't see.
Yep.
So like for not a whole lot of money, it's a really good upgrade to the device you probably already have. And they sell little kits for this. So if you're technical, you don't even have to go buy another Game Boy. You can just mod the one you've got. And then you still got all your cartridges. You still got your physical collection. At that point, all these other ones are emulating. You have this all on software. You're getting ROMs. Whereas, if you're a collector or you just have all your games you love, Game Boy Advance is still just the regular thing. You just slap it in and go.
Yep. And, I have a bunch of like Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance carts. I've lost some of them, unfortunately. But the ones that I do have, they have my old saves on them and stuff like that. So if you've got that sort of stuff, that is exactly the argument I was going to make for it. Plus, it's just kind of cool.
It is. I mean, it's nice to whip out something you remember from your childhood and be like, boom, I'm back in it.
Or just take it and just like pull it out and be like, look at this cool nerd thing that I have, and not impress any of the women in your life.
But you'll impress the men. Or, I don't know, I won't give you that. I think my wife would be impressed because she played a lot of handheld games.
That may be true. My wife was not impressed. She was just like, oh, that's cool, honey, But yeah, so I really like it. If you're into game collecting or something like that, I think it's a must-have. I've been putting it off for years because I couldn't find one for under $200. $150 was what I was looking for. I think that's in today's dollars, I think it's about what I paid for my Game Boy Advance. I think they were like $70 or something when I bought them, when I bought mine. And the badges on it look cool. It's got the original badge stuff, even though this is a replacement shell. I want to get the badge that goes here on the top where the cart goes. But that little window that shows you the cart on the clear shell, this is a clear black shell that I have here, is really cool. The speakers upgraded. Everything on it's just really cool. The white PCB showing through the black thing and it matching the batteries, charger.
Oh yeah, that's a good call too. You've got a actual battery pack in there, so you don't have to swap out batteries on it.
Nope, it's rechargeable in the thing. The one thing that I noticed was that it popped out, so I've got to adjust the spring on it. But I mean it's a pretty awesome little thing to have. It's just not it's not necessary if you've got some of these other things, and it's a little bit more costly too. Ultimately.
I looked up the kits. If you want to do it yourself, the kits are about like $50-$60, but that does require you got to be comfortable going in there and making the changes yourself and all that.
Well, there's not a whole lot of difficulty in it. There's a little bit of soldering though, I believe. So if you're not comfortable with soldering, then that could be a problem for you. the battery kit was just plug and play. You didn't have to do anything like that. You either mod a shell to cut out the hole for the USB-C, or you get one that's pre-made. And then, so I just bought mine pre-made because I wanted it to be very clean. And you get a battery and a charger, the regulator that goes on the battery, and then you put them together, and that's just more of like a plug-in kind of thing generally. And then you just have to mod the battery posts in the Game Boy, which is like taking them out, and it just kind of goes in. It's not a very difficult mod to do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, even if I don't do the shell and the IPS screen on my original Game Boy Advance, I'm going to do the mod for the battery pack because it's so easy.
Oh yeah, that's such a huge quality of life improvement.
Yeah, exactly. And you can just like plug it in to, it charges and plays at the same time.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So yeah, so it's a no-brainer. But okay, so if I could only pick one of these and I had a Steam Deck, what would I pick? That would be the Miyoo Mini or the Miyoo Mini Plus, which would actually be the Miyoo Mini Plus. If I could have one, because the Steam Deck's a little bit big to carry on a flight. If I could have 3 of these and carry them on like one for like carrying on a flight. I've flown with the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus before, and that was a lot of fun. All right, we were interrupted again. Someone came to the door, so there's going to be a weird like cut out there mid me talking about something. Sorry.
Hey, if we did ad breaks, those would be the perfect times.
Those would be the perfect times. So we're going to talk about the beer, and then I'm going to go back into my thought about if I could have 2 of these and what the purposes would be, and see if you agree with that. But I just had this beer warmed up a little bit. I just had a little sip of it. Do you know what changed in it?
Yeah, I was going to say, because I had a sip too. Once it's warmed up and some of that head has gone away, the bitterness dropped down some, and you can taste a little bit more of that fruit.
The blueberry. Yeah, exactly. So I can see why they're like, yeah, let's get this out to people, because that is fascinating. It's still, cold, so it's got that going with it, but it's not as cold, and it's not as, the head is not as bitter.
Yeah, it's now kind of like in that cool range, probably in the 50s somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So what I was saying before I got interrupted is that the Retroid Pocket 3 would probably be if I had to carry something and I wanted just some controllers on it. The thing that would make this so much better all the way around is if there was a Retroid Pocket 3 Plus or a device like that cost about $150 that had, really great joysticks and everything, which this one has okay ones, but I'm going to put some Hall sensor joysticks in it. They sell those. So had analog triggers, and so, they're not clicky, so you can do like racing games and stuff like that if you wanted to, or if you had like a shooter game where you could depress it a little bit and it would do single fire, and then you hold it down further, it like does rapid fire or something like that. Those things would make me change my mind at that point. Same performance, but just Android picks up the sticks as native controllers. It has, the kind of same sort of thing that you could pick up for like a phone, because I also have a Razer Kishi, and that is the only reason I can use that to play like any of my games on my phone. And that kind of, almost invalidates the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, because my 5-year-old Android phone has the same basic performance as this does. So there you go. I don't know. Do you agree with me on that assessment, though?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I still kind of lean towards the retro purchase for my use case, but there's certainly a lot of value in most of these. The only one I'm having a hard time placing is whichever one this one is, the one with the weird name.
Anbernic RG35XX.
Yeah, that's the one I think is getting, to me, a little outclassed by the Miyoo. Because even though it is bigger, the Miyoo is such a nice little small compact thing with that screen that, I gotta say that one's probably my least, apart from just like the original Game Boy.
Yeah. So I do find myself, when I'm wanting to play something like at my desk or something, I'll sometimes have that one nearby. I just don't like the pocketability because of the flared. It's got these flared trigger buttons on the back.
Yeah.
Which you make it pretty easy to get to, and they're nice and clicky. But I also don't like the D-pad on it. The D-pad. I don't play fighting games very much, but it's got some. It'll, like, if you hold these two down, or you're holding down the bottom, and you do this with it, where you wiggle it, it'll register left or right.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
For this one, you can do something similar, but it doesn't do that. Now, I mostly play role-playing games, so that's not a big deal, but I still, the feeling of the D-pad is not as nice. It's a little bit
no, you're right.
more harsh. Otherwise, it's not really that big of a difference between the Miyoo Mini and the RG35XX. It's just a bigger device. It's a little bit more comfortable for someone like me with big hands to hold. So that's basically it when it comes down to it. And I just realized I had my head turned from the mic, so I'm pretty sure that it was hard for everyone to hear what I just said.
Well, we'll see in the recording. You sounded okay on my headset.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, I don't have anything else to say about the handhelds. You should pick one of these up if you don't have one. And if you're going to, spend some time with one, and you can only pick up one, and you can get your hands on a Miyoo, I think that's the one you probably should get if you're interested in retro games. If you're doing Android gaming or anything like that, plus retro gaming, the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus would be my, advice to get. But if you have, you want PSP games or something like that, that's the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think that you fall more into that latter category, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, so this has been a very interrupted Season 6, Episode 4 of the Beer and Broadband podcast. And next time, we're going to talk about coffee, so you should come back and hear what we have to say about preparing coffee in 3 different ways. Otherwise, have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.